Cody, let's play the game, though, that, assuming the draft starts at 3, what intrigues you the most? Is it where the Giants sit at 3 if you are going to make those Cam Ward and Travis Hunter assumptions, or where do you jump to, Cody? That's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a player, actually. I think there's a lot of great talent at the top of this draft, but the guy that intrigues me the most is Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. I really like him as a prospect. He's one of those can't-miss type guys, a sure thing, if you will, at the next level when it comes to prospects in 2025. I love his versatility. You can line him up anywhere on the field on the offensive side of the ball. That's what makes him so valuable. I watched the man come to USC at the Coliseum against my Trojans early last year and go for 17 receptions, 224 yards, and a touchdown as a tight end, Jamie. He lined up at quarterback, at running back, at wide receiver. He threw a pass. He ran the ball. He also lined up at center, snapped the ball to Drew Aller, ran down the middle of the field, and caught a touchdown over our safety. He is a game plan nightmare for opposing defensive coordinators. He can create mismatches all over the field. Very smooth route runner as well at 6'5", 260 pounds, which is rare to say. Great catch radius, can go up and take the ball out of the sky. I just really love him as a prospect. I think he's going to be a great player for a very long time in the NFL, and I don't think personally he makes it outside of the top 10 on Thursday night.
Somebody was actually on last week and claimed that he might be a top 5 guy even. And if you're a Mike Vrabel trying to make Drake May feel more comfortable, the Patriots currently sit at number 4 in their NFL draft slot. Tom Pelissero, you just set the table for us. It was a wonderful job. But there must be something out there that's like a little bit more meat on the bone for you in terms of draft intrigue.
Well, first of all, Cody's right, and Tyler Warren should be a top 10 pick. He's on that very, very short list of the elite players in this draft. In a normal draft, NFL teams might have 18 to 22 players with first-round grades. As I'm talking to people within the league, there's maybe 8, 10, 12 clear dudes in this draft. And then everybody from, depending where you cut it off, 10 to, let's say, 25, 30, 40. There's a whole bunch of players with really similar grades. This also is a draft where you only have one quarterback who has pretty consistent first-round starter grades across the NFL. That's Cam Ward. So I am fascinated to see, where does that next group of quarterbacks go? There's been a lot of focus on Shedeur Sanders. We'll talk about him plenty within this show. But it is not consistent across the league that Shedeur Sanders is even the number 2 quarterback that'll come off the board in this draft. Jackson Dart is in that conversation. Where does Jalen Milroe go? Where does Tyler Shuck go from Louisville, the guy who most people probably are a lot less familiar with if you were a college football fan? He was backing up Justin Herbert at Oregon for a couple of years. That's how long he's been around. Put it together, though, last year at Louisville. Those 4 guys from quarterback 2 to quarterback 5, I have talked to over 20 teams. They're all stacked differently from team to team because they're different flavors. Shuck is the guy who comes from a pro-style offense. He knows how to operate it. Jalen Milroe is one of the best running threats that anybody has ever scouted coming out in the draft. Jackson Dart coming from that offense at Ole Miss that kind of gets knocked around because it's like a quarterback-friendly spread type of scheme. I'm sure Cody will break that down for us a little bit later. And then you've got Shedeur, the highest profile one, the guy who, up until a few months ago, people were saying, is he going to be the number 1 pick over Cam Ward? Those 4 guys, they could all go in the first. They could all slide into the second. We just don't know exactly how that's going to play out. It's going to be one of the fun and probably a little bit stressful situations to monitor for those guys who are involved.
Yeah, it just depends on what seat you sit in, whether or not it's fun or stressful. Tom, you're exactly right. What I found most intriguing was, when is the next time I'm going to see or hear from Kyle Brandt? We've been dancing around on GMFB. I haven't seen him. I haven't heard from him. I have no idea what his takes are when it comes to the NFL draft. I saw him pop up on SportsCenter last week. But Kyle Brandt is here. We are both going to Green Bay eventually this week at some point, Kyle. I will see you there. But you have to have a capital I intrigue storyline today. Kyle, what is it?
First of all, I go away for a few days. Everything goes to crap. What the hell happened? I'm sitting here. I'm ready to contribute. I have takes for Cody. I want to thank Pelissero, who just had more carries this segment than Ashton Jeanty is going to have in his entire rookie year. Tom, you're doing work. I love you, buddy. You ran down your whole LinkedIn from your back in your days in Green Bay. You did everything, Tom, trying to carry us. Thank you. Let me get in here for a second. And Jamie, I'll get in here with a question.
Oh, no.
And this is a question to you, Jamie, to Cody, to everybody in the country, to everybody covering the draft. Are we allowed to talk about Cam Ward? Is it okay if I do that? Are they going to pull us off the air if we don't have a segment that is exclusively about one of the Colorado guys? My gosh, Cam Ward is the least covered number 1 overall pick in history. And he's not some forgotten about old lineman from some dopey program. He's a quarterback from Miami, and you are pulled off the air by the FAA if you even talk about him. I don't understand what's going on here. The Jaguars took Trayvon Walker a few years ago. I'm not sure he's been mentioned in a television segment since then. And he was more talked about than Cam Ward. I'm old enough to remember 2013, Eric Fisher was taken number 1 out of Central Michigan, a lineman from the MAC. And he was Peyton Manning compared to Cam Ward. I get it. I understand why. Maybe the Titans don't jump off the marquee for you. Maybe there's not a fight and everything has to be a debate and we have to fill segments with fighting. Should it be this guy or that guy? And there is no debate. But isn't that a credit to Cam Ward? Mm-hmm. Shouldn't we at least take one hot second and say, wow, this Cam Ward's guy is pretty good? And shouldn't we know just a little bit more about him? We know a lot about Shedeur Sanders. I know Cam Ward's father is not a football coach that's very famous and we used to have video games in his own shoe and everything. I know his father's also named Calvin and his wife Patrice. They go to every single one of Cam Ward's games. Cam Ward's favorite food are Pop-Tarts. On Cam Ward's pregame playlist is Kodak Black. And you know what? Maybe the draft story isn't that compelling. His story is compelling. Understand this. The guy that no one's talking about was a 0-star recruit out of high school, just like the reigning MVP Josh Allen. He went to Incarnate Word, not for some cup of coffee before he entered the portal. He was there for 2 years, playing, taking hits, growing, and then he jumps up and he's now the number 1 overall pick. This is an incredible story, and the story about the story is the audacity of people to say that the draft starts at pick number 3. No, it starts at 1 with Cam Ward, the best player in the draft who will be drafted number 1 overall. And I'm sorry, we're going to have to pay some sort of fine or fee because we talked about him on the air the week of the draft. Apologies. I'm going to do it again later in the week, too. It's great to be back.
Please, Kyle, favorite Pop-Tart, real quick. What do you got?
I mean, I'm a classic guy. I like just the strawberry. I don't even need it frosted. Back in the day, they didn't come frosted, and everything was all sugared and all perfect and everything. Classic strawberry unfrosted, and a 3 out of the 10 toasted. I like it lightly toasted, medium rare.
All right, good to know. We'll have to ask Cam Ward that as well, since that's on his bio. Kyle, well done. Welcome back officially. It's great to hear from you and to feel your energy. It's palpable through the screen.
Tom, I'm gonna go back to you, and you're just gonna keep working, and I love that you're there, and I appreciate it. We talked about this with Mike Garafolo last week. What is your take on the marriage between the Sanders family and the Mara family? Maybe they have different ways of doing business. Maybe they have different style. Is that something that you use the word polarizing for Shedeur for all different types of reasons? Can you really see the Giants as an organization bringing that type of media entity into New York City and saying this is our guy we're going to build around?
Well, what the Giants have to ask themselves are, what do we want to be for the next 5, 10, 15 years of the franchise? You're right. They have had a series of quarterbacks from Eli Manning to Daniel Jones who have been, you talk about a Pop-Tart. This would be like one with no filling. Absolute, no flavor, just straightforward. And then you go from that to Shedeur Sanders, who, again, based upon who his father is, based upon how high profile it is, it would just be a different type of a setup here. I certainly do not believe it's a disqualifier. Again, they've done a ton of work on Shedeur Sanders. Everybody is going to have to make their own determinations here. And I had a GM for a different team tell me the other day, Shedeur, you just got to like him. No building is going to have a 100% consensus. But do you feel like, from a physical standpoint, as well as from a locker room standpoint, this is going to work for you? If the answer is, you know what, we think there's a pretty decent chance, then you suck it up and you take them.
Yeah, I think the Giants go best available.
Cody.
And in my opinion, I think that's either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. I don't think they draft Shedeur Sanders. This could potentially be the last year that we see Joe Shane and Brian Daboll with the New York Giants if there's not a significant turnaround in 2025. For that reason specifically, I think they go out and draft a player that can play right away. I like Shedeur Sanders. I think he has potential to be a very good player in the NFL. I just don't think that's right away. I think it's going to take some time. He's going to have to develop. It's going to take a little bit of time for him to get there. The Giants don't have time to wait on that. They have to get a guy that can go out and produce. You cannot rush a quarterback when it comes to his development. That's very important. You can play a wide receiver or a defensive end a little bit earlier than maybe they're ready, because they can go out there and get thrown in the fire and get their feet wet a little bit, play a couple snaps, learn what works, learn what doesn't, and it won't hurt them too bad. If you play a quarterback before they are ready, especially in today's era of the NFL with all the pressure and the scrutiny and social media and a media market like New York, you could significantly hurt their development and their confidence, and that is so difficult for a young quarterback to overcome, especially as a young player in this league with a lot of football still ahead of you. Also, The Giants already have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. I'm not saying that those are the quarterbacks of the future for New York, but they don't necessarily need to go out and get a quarterback. Exactly. They can go get a guy that can play right away. That's what's so important for them. Because of those circumstances and because of how important this is of a year for Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, I think they go out and get a guy and draft him that can go out and produce right away. Because if they get Shedeur Sanders and he's not ready, they may not even be around by the time that he develops and he goes out there and plays.
Isn't there another Manning that's going to be draft eligible next year anyways? So do you buy yourself a year with the quarterbacks on your roster? The Mannings and the Maras, we know that works. Kyle, this is why we love this week. The Ashton Jeanty story is a ridiculous one. To go from Italy to Florida to Texas, this running back finally found his footing on the blue field in college. When you look at Ashton Jeanty and what he accomplished as a running back, what do you love most about this guy?
It's a great question. And normally, the story is that they're in Florida and they're a 4-star recruit and they go to Ohio State and that's all wonderful. That's all great. Those guys are incredible. This story is very cool. Military bases and moving here and moving there and dominating everywhere. And also, one of the most important players in this draft in the sense that the team that takes him, what do I see for him? I see 300 carries in his rookie year. You draft a running back as high as someone's going to draft this guy, that running back is going to work because you know damn well he's on the clock until he's going to want that contract extension. You're going to run the wheels off him and then probably not give it to him. But that's for another show. I love what he does. And one of the things I think is not talked about is, so about 400 touches last year. 400 touches. He had 3 fumbles, which is pretty good. It's not immaculate, it's not great, but is the guy who is the feature piece of the offense and everyone's trying to strip it from him and everyone will be at the next level. I love that stuff about running backs. Also, my favorite thing about running backs is yards per carry. I don't care about total yards. I don't care about touchdowns. When we give you the ball, how many yards do you get? And each year at Boise, each highly productive year, the yards per carry went up and up and up. It was like a running back gets stronger into the fourth quarter. He got stronger into his 3rd season there. It's a fascinating thing with the draft because I like what Tom's getting at. It's not just that, oh, wow, he gets drafted in the top 10. I like the idea of a leapfrog deal for them, for somebody who wants them so bad they will pay through the nose to move up. And I've said this before Cody gets in here. It's like Ashton Jeanty could not have hit this any better. To have his ability and his highlights draft this year following Saquon, following Derrick Henry, following all those amazing running backs last year, and the year before that, McCaffrey being Offensive Player of the Year. It's like there is a thirst for running backs right now, and he just played it absolutely perfectly. I don't think he gets past 6 or 7, but I also don't think the people sitting at 6 or 7 are necessarily the ones who are going to draft him.
Yeah, that was very well said, Kyle. Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion, is probably my favorite player in this entire draft. He is such a explosive running back. Please, if you haven't watched his tape, go watch his film at Boise State. A great combination of power and speed paired with great vision, knows how to let his blocks develop. Then he puts his foot in the ground, gets north and south. He can hurdle a guy. He is patient, but also not a lot of wasted movements, and that's so important at the next level. He also can create on his own, and what that means is when the blocking is not quite there, he can break tackles. He can make a negative 3-yard play into a 10-yard play, which is so important, and you love that as a quarterback. He had 2,600 yards on the ground. He had 29 touchdowns rushing. He also had 374 carries. He had 23 receptions out of the backfield as well. Like Kyle mentioned, that's over 400 touches in one season. I can't even comprehend the mental and physical toughness that you have to be able to do that on a week-to-week basis. That is very impressive, but that tells me as a GM, as a head coach, as an owner of a football team, that he knows how to prioritize his body. He knows how to be available. He knows how to, on a week-to-week basis, go back, do the recovery, and be available for his team the next Saturday or the next Sunday. That's so important. We just heard CeeDee Lamb talk about spending $50,000 every 2 weeks to take care of his body. Everybody laughed, but that seems like a small thing, but it's so important at the next level. Nothing means more to a coach, to a GM, to an owner than availability. You have to be available to play, or I can't use you on the field. Now, I know some injuries happen and you can't do something about it and things like that. And some of those freak accidents happen. But at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not taking care of your body, you're hurting yourself, but you're also hurting your football team. Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion, is probably going to be the most explosive player out of this draft, and I can't wait to watch him on Sundays.
Well, that everyone expects to come off the board in the first round of the NFL draft on Thursday night. Right now, I'm going to give you 5 names of players you haven't seen a whole lot in the mock drafts, but you should not be shocked if Roger Goodell introduces him in round one. Let's start out with Carson Schlesinger, linebacker from UCLA. He was a walk-on to that program. Only became a starter last year, but he led all of FBS with 90 solo tackles. He can run, he can cover, he can play all three downs. He's got a lot of fans within the league, a very instinctive player. Doesn't have the pass rush capabilities of a Jihad Campbell, but it's a bunch of teams late in round one that need an off-the-ball linebacker. Carson Schlesinger could be that guy. Number 2, Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. I got a bunch of responses when I mentioned it before saying everybody thinks he's going in the first. Not in the mock drafts that are on NFL.com. He was a highly productive slot receiver at Ohio State. Some think he's even more explosive than Jackson Smith-Njigba, who went in the first round a couple of years ago, coming off a Pro Bowl appearance. We've talked so much about Tet McMillan and Matthew Golden. I would not be shocked if Egbuka comes off maybe somewhere between 20 and 25 in round one. Georgia center Jared Wilson is number 3. That's definitely a name you've not seen in any mock drafts. There's a lot of teams that project Gray Zabel from North Dakota State to center, but he's never played that position. Jared Wilson is the top guy who has actually snapped the football in games. He allowed 0 sacks on 511 pass block snaps last season in his first year as the Georgia starter. Like a lot of those Bulldog centers, he's quicker than he is strong. That's not going to be a fit for everyone, but centers tend to go. One of them usually sneaks up into round one. Keep an eye on Jared Wilson on Thursday night. Number 4, another Ohio State guy, defensive tackle Tyleik Williams. He weighs 334 pounds. He is a big run stuffer. Look how large this man is. For some reason, he decided to run a 40 at his pro day, show off how athletic he is. He pulled a hamstring. It's not a major injury. He'll be back in plenty of time for training camp here. There's a bunch of really good defensive linemen in this draft. You can see those names come off late in round one. Tyleik Williams is one that maybe can sneak up on some people, unlike the actual Tyleik Williams, who can sneak up on nobody. He's 334 pounds. Finally, number 5, Louisville quarterback Tyler Shuck. 7 years of college football, 3 different schools. He's got 3 or 4 different degrees from different places. I asked him back at the Senior Bowl, which of those degrees are you actually going to use? He said, for now, I think I'm going to use my degree in football. He finally put together a year where he was healthy last season for the Cardinals, put some good stuff on tape. He's helped himself through the process because he played a pro-style offense at Louisville. He's got 7 years of watching tape and being around different types of offenses. Really impressed coordinators and coaches in terms of how he talks about the game. He had a lot on his plate at the line of scrimmage at Louisville. Now, there are some concerns because he's had all those injuries, just about how that impacts his play style, whether or not there's times he gets a little bit skittish against the rush. Realistically, Tyler Shuck, probably more than likely is going to be a day 2 pick, but all it takes is one team to say, we need a quarterback. We know this guy can step in right now and run our offense. Tyler Shuck, I'll say it's a long shot, but would not be a total shock if somehow he slips in to round 1 Thursday night.
Yeah, Tom, I'm going to stick right there with Tyler Shuck. I do like him as a prospect, and he impressed me at the Combine. He didn't get a lot of coverage, and I think he should have got a little bit more hype by how well he performed throwing on the on-field workouts. But again, those 7 years in college, that can be seen as a negative. I know the injuries played a factor, but you said it very well there. He knows how to go in and learn a new offense. He can go out there and perform. He can go out there and adapt to a new play style calling, to a new system, to all these other things. That's going to have to happen in the NFL, because if you are not a first-round pick, if you become a backup-type player, which I think Shuck will start out as, especially on his rookie contract, you may bounce around a little bit. You may not fit in at one place. You may have to go to another system, but you're going to have to learn on the fly if you want to go out there and compete for a backup spot. Look, I don't know if Shuck will be in the first round, but I'll tell you this. I'm not going to go against Tom P. If he thinks he has a chance to go in the first round, then I believe it too.
I always like the Chris Wenke, Brandon Whedon, really old rookie. Like, he's going to turn 26 years old in September of his rookie year, and that's great. I love that, and it's experience, and it's the journey. But I have to take you on a journey, Tom. In February, I was in Orlando. I was working the Pro Bowl games, and I got to talk to Eli before the game, and I just said, Eli, who's impressed you on these Pro Bowl rosters? Like, who's really good in practice? And he said Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's like, he's incredible. I love this guy. That brings me to Emeka Egbuka, because you mentioned JSN in your comp as well. Emeka Egbuka, faster than JSN, far more productive, slightly bigger, and yet we're sitting here and we have to have a take about whether he might get into the first round. Tell us more about why you like him, and then, Tom, tell us more about this alleged flack that you're taking for him, including him in your list.
There's so many mock drafts. There's so many experts. DJ's got him 18th on his top 50 player list, but he didn't have him in his latest mock draft. That's what happens because slot receivers, generally speaking, they tend to slip down to the second round. The questions you're going to be asking yourself, and I've talked with GMs about this when it comes to Ibuka, is, number one, can he play outside, or is he strictly a slot? That's going to impact his value. And number two, does he play with the type of physicality and violence that he's going to need at the next level? Listen, wide receivers are not going to be for everyone. There's different styles. There's different ways that coaches might look at these guys in terms of how they fit into an offense here. But you said it. Ibuka's been highly productive. He is an explosive type of a player here. This is not a really strong up at the top wide receiver draft. I don't think you have a consensus. I know there's not across the league, and even how to rank the 1, 2, 3, 4 receivers in this draft. It's just part of the drama that's going to roll out on Thursday night.
That man that I married who went to the school up north is going to love the fact that I'm going to hang with Ohio State when the guy that I want to bring up, Tyleik Williams. Kyle, we fell in love with this prospect last week. He came on GMFB, an absolute mammoth of a man. Tom mentioned him. He's 334 now, but when he arrived in Columbus, he was 360 pounds. He has whittled his way down to the D tackle that he is. He is a shot put champion in high school, which just has the get off me mentality when it comes to his hand and arm strength. My favorite things about him include the fact that he's got 2 cats, Mango and S'more, that he brought on the show. He constantly carries his 3 rings that he won this year at Ohio State around. But also the fact that if you do the fancy filter that we have on NFL.com and NFL Plus, and you look at 10-yard splits, which is just not the 40. I don't care how a 340-pound man runs a 40. I care about the first 10 yards of getting after a quarterback. He is the fastest. If you look at that filter, 1.62. A 334-pound man can get 10 yards down the field. Quarterbacks, look out. Tyleik Williams, he is my favorite, Tom. Tom's got nothing on Tyleik.
Huge for linemen. Sorry, I had somebody in my ear there. Yeah.
All those things are the reasons why I use the words in your lead, which is he's scrutinized, he's debated, he's very polarizing, Shedeur Sanders is. Kyle, are you comfortable with how much attention this one player has gotten with the where he's going to go? Is he worth, in terms of his talent and his name and his recognition, is this that we are supposed to care this much about this guy?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's when I look at Shedeur now, draft week, I put him through the Shedeur Smith test, meaning what if his name was Shedeur Smith, not Shedeur Sanders, and he went to, let's just say, Missouri? Is this guy a top 5 pick? I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. All the reasons Tom just said is that he doesn't have the elite profile, the elite arm. He doesn't have this long series of winning in college. It's his last name. And it's his pedigree, and it's unique, and it's people thinking they can catch something in a bottle and turn to find a superstar. And if it was Shedeur Smith, we're not having this conversation right now. I think the only comp that I've come up with in terms of not necessarily even the athlete, just in terms of the mystery and the intrigue about where the hell is this guy going, is Johnny Manziel. And I don't want to draw the comparisons between the two because Manziel was such a disaster as a player. But Manziel was all over the map in terms of the experts. Mel Kiper had him number 1, consensus overall. Bucky Brooks thought he would go 3 to Jacksonville. Daniel Jeremiah thought he would go 4 to Cleveland. Sports Illustrated had him going number 1 overall. He went to 22. He went 22, and this is a guy who walks out and splashes the money sign. There it is. Not for everybody. Huge faults in his game, but he's got this it factor to him, and he can run around and make plays. There are a lot of similarities. So I look at Shedeur now, and you look at some of these same people who do this for a living. Mel Kiper has Shedeur going at 9 to the Saints, or they trade up. Bucky's got him going 2 to Cleveland. DJ's got him going 3 to New York. This is high. Really, really, really high picks for a guy who, as Tom said, is far from a perfect profile. He has perfect pedigree. He has incredible genetics. He has a lot to like in terms of his toughness and his work ethic. But he fails the Shedeur Smith test, of course. We're kidding ourselves if you think Shedeur Smith from Missouri would be drafted number 3 or number 2. You're taking a ride on the Sanders Express. It's not for everybody, but you're going to see where it goes. And every single thing I'm reading from every expert, I'm not seeing a lot of free fall. I'm not seeing 22 like Manziel. All these people who I trust and respect don't even have him getting out of the top 5. That's where we're at.
Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I went back and I watched Shedeur's tape again last night. I did, and I really broke down the film.
How many times have you watched it?
I've watched it too many times.
Okay.
I've watched everybody's film too many times at this point. It's when we get to draft week, I've watched everybody's tape as many times as you can count. So I went back and watched it again. I believe the reason that there's no true consensus right now on Shedeur Sanders is because there is a pretty significant gap between how high his ceiling can be and how low his floor can be. And it feels like analysts and scouts and coaches and teams and everybody who watches football is torn on which way he's going to go when he gets to the NFL. There's a lot to love when you watch the tape of Shedeur Sanders. There's also a lot of things that are very worrisome. Now, I do think the positives outweigh the negatives, and there's a lot more positives on tape than negatives, but there are a couple things that are cause for concern. But let me start with the positives. Like Tom P said, very accurate passer, 74% completion percentage, and that's throwing the ball 477 times last year. That is unheard of. You have to be extremely accurate to put up those type of numbers. Plays with a lot of confidence, very calm, cool, and collected in the pocket. Does a great job of keeping his poise. Doesn't get too flustered in those big-time moments. Very tough. Took a lot of hits at Colorado. I'm not saying that's a positive thing, but he kept getting up and bouncing back and making big-time throws. The one thing I do think is very important for Shedeur is that he knows what it takes to turn around an organization. He did it at Jackson State. He went to Colorado and did the same thing. Now, I know he had Travis Hunter, his dad, other guys around him, but he was the quarterback of that football team, and he turned that program around. Now, when you look at the negatives and the things that are concerning a little bit, I'm going to start with his footwork. He gets off schedule too many times. He does not get to his spot in the pocket. That leads to some of those sacks. And what I mean by that is if I'm dropping back and it's a 7-step drop, I need you at 9.5 yards right down the midline. If you drift to the right, if you drift to the left, if you get to 10 yards, 10.5 yards, you're hurting your tackles. You're hurting your guards. You can't do that. He does that too many times on film. That led to some of those sacks. Now, I know his offensive line struggled at Colorado. When you watch the tape, you're going to see that. But he didn't help himself. There's too many times to where he just needs to take a profit, right? The defense is going to win sometimes, especially up front. You can't compound the problem and make a bad play worse. He tried to do too much and be a hero too many times, and that hurt him. And then that kind of led to him being a little bit of predetermined with his throws because he wanted to get the ball out quickly. Like I said, very accurate passer, great anticipation, or a lot of anticipatory throws, but he would predetermine. And I go back to one of the plays against Arizona where he's throwing a double post to the left, and he locks on one receiver, throws it no matter what. The safety makes a play on the football returner. It's a turnover on a big-time moment in that game. Instead of knowing, okay, the guy's not there, let me find my check down, let me throw it away, let me move on, protect the team, and then make a next play or make a big play on the next down. I lean more towards the ceiling when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. I agree with a lot of these mock drafts. I think he's going to be a very good football player, but I do believe he needs to go to the right system and be developed the right way more than any other quarterback in this draft.
Here's the other factor in this, Cody, and you're talking about. There's a development process that needs to take place, right, with Shedeur Sanders. You can't be sitting there thinking he's going to step in week one, be the starter, and play at a Pro Bowl level. Well, you have this unique situation where his father, Deion Sanders, who, listen, he has earned the right to say what's on his mind, but he's also been very outspoken defending his son against any type of criticism from any corner. If you struggle early in the season, if Shedeur's playing, if he's not, if the team he's on is struggling, Deion's going to be asked questions about that team. He's going to be asked questions about his son. There's going to be reports and rumors about Deion potentially replacing whoever the head coach is of the team. Yeah. That doesn't exist anyplace else. And as much as we can say you want to isolate the player, he's not Johnny Manziel. He doesn't have off-the-field problems. He's not a concern. He's not a party guy. Everybody says he's all ball. He wants to be great. But you still have these other factors here in a building where he was allowed to take a separate car to the games, and he could pull up and park his Bentley in front of the facility and just walk in, and everything was catered to the way that he wanted it to be. That's just not going to be the reality in the NFL. I think there are certain coaches who would be very good for Shedeur Sanders. He visited, again, the Steelers. Mike Tomlin, we had Shedeur on the Insiders, and he said how much he got along with Mike Tomlin because he reminded him of his dad. If you go to some other place, it might not work out as well. You can never overlook the contextual things with quarterbacks. Cody, you live that firsthand. Where you go, when you go there, who your coaches are, what the scheme is, how much stability you have. These are all huge factors in development. When you have somebody who's going to need some time, like Shedeur is, it's more important, frankly, for him to land in the right spot than it is for him to come off the board as quickly as possible.
All right, at Colorado, from the guy that played quarterback to another guy that he would put a lot of points on the board with, in Travis Hunter. He is the two-way, all the conversation, the focus point of the NFL draft, because the fascination is there, Kyle, with whether or not a team will utilize him as the true two-way player that he wants to be, that he is fighting so badly for. When we hear Travis Hunter's name on Thursday, Kyle, do you think that we will be getting the league's first two-way player in modern history, or do you see this thing playing out differently with this talented athlete?
I'm so intrigued even by the specifics of how Roger Goodell will announce it. Does he say Travis Hunter, cornerback, wide receiver, Colorado? Or does he say Travis Hunter, wide receiver, cornerback, Colorado? I want to hear what he says and in what order he says it. And I think they'll be paid attention to that. That's how interesting this guy is. And we've done the deep history of it. What is he attempting to do is not been done in modern times. Even people like who won the Heisman, like Charles Woodson, tried it, didn't do it. Even his coach Dion did it for about 8 games in 1996. It was a true two-way starter, and then they scrapped it. And Dion had to stop playing baseball just to be able to pull it off. And now here we are. I maintain what I've said for weeks now. As a fan, I want to see this happen. I want to see him play both sides. And I think the best place he could possibly do it is New England. I think it's the Patriots, because I think you have to have a head coach who is totally secure, is not in any kind of job jeopardy, is not worried what the media thinks, who has this sort of Parcellian chutzpah that says, screw you, I know what I'm doing, and also who has an offensive coordinator who doesn't give a damn either, has been around the block 100 times. Vrabel, McDaniels, I think that is the type of brain trust that would be able to say, we're doing this, and here's how we're going to do it. Can they get him at 4? I don't know. Would they trade up inside the top 5? We've seen it. You're telling me the Bears are going to go up and get Mitch Trubisky and the Patriots can go get Travis Hunter? That's where I want him to go. I think he has the best shot of realizing it. That's just my take, Cody.
Yeah, I don't know how realistic it is for Travis Hunter to be a true two-way starter every single Sunday for 18 weeks of a season. That is going to be extremely difficult, especially for the longevity of his career. But I'll tell you this right now, I'm not going to sit here and doubt him for 1 second. A lot of people said that he couldn't do it at Colorado. He couldn't do it at the college level. He went out there and he won a Heisman Trophy while averaging over 110 snaps per game. The kid puts his body on the line every single Saturday. He's doing whatever it takes to win football games. He's willing to be a true competitor and go out there and help his team win games. That's the type of guy that you want on your roster. That's the type of guy that you want in your locker room. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Whoever drafts Travis Hunter on Thursday night is getting 2 players for the price of 1 draft pick. He is that valuable, and he's going to immediately make your team better, potentially on both sides of the football.
When I was talking to head coaches at the league meeting back in March, and I was asking everybody about this, the idea of this, and somebody being able to truly play 2 ways, the number one thing that they brought up that was going to be a hurdle that Travis Hunter would have to get over was just the amount of time on task. You can't be in 2 meetings at once. There's very limited snaps during a practice week in the season. So the question then becomes, how do you best set up Travis Hunter for success? Because he's got the opportunity to be great at both things. Him just being pretty good but not having the time to be great at anything is not in anybody's best interest here. So whatever team takes him is going to have a clear plan about how they're going to do it. Again, you have limited time in the building, limited meeting time, limited snaps in practice here. The Browns and Andrew Berry already have made very clear. They think he's a receiver first, but they also believe that he can play both ways. If, in fact, he lands in Cleveland, which is not a certainty, but certainly is the way that people in the league believe that this is going to go, what Kevin Stefanski and Jim Schwartz and everyone's going to have to figure out. I mean, it's not going to be a tug-of-war over the guy. It can't be, hey, I need him in this meeting. No, you need him in that meeting. You got to have a really clear vision for how you're going to ramp him up. But I would not be surprised at all if we see Travis Hunter, by the time his rookie season ends, playing a decent amount on both sides of the ball because he is that rare.
Are we going to try to file some paperwork here, Kyle? Would you be open to it being Travis Hunter, athlete, Colorado, or do you need the differentiation of the positions athlete? Do you need it to be the 2 positions, or can it just be, here's this awesome player?
Well, I like it sounds very on brand because, as you know, at Colorado, they don't do the C for captain. It's like D for dog or something. And then they didn't have a pro day. They had like a showcase or something like that. So I'm sure Prime has got some thoughts on what he should be introduced as. But I think, listen, I'll be listening riveted to see which way Goodell says it and which one comes first. How do you do that? Like, what would the official profile in the draft, if you, NFL.com, has cornerback first.
Yes.
But I feel like, I don't know, I think he's going to say wide receiver first. It's just one of the things I'm looking for, where he goes and how does Goodell say it. All right. I love saying this. An old friend of the show. And a lot of times when I say that, it's like an old player or it's someone that came in as the draft and is now retiring. Or in this case, it's the NFL's executive vice president overseeing player health and safety. It's Jeff Miller. What's up, Jeff?
Kyle, how are you?
Happy draft week.
Happy draft week to you.
So you and I have been talking for years, and there's something I just learned about you that the audience needs to know that it's just blown my mind. Jeff, you're from Wisconsin.
Blowing your mind.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Where are you from? What part?
Little town called Mequon, which is just north of Milwaukee. For football references, about an hour, 20-minute drive south of Green Bay.
Okay, so an hour and 20-minute drive south of the NFL draft.
Correct.
As a Wisconsin guy, how are you feeling this week?
I mean, could not be more excited. Right?
So cool.
I mean, every city is able to put its own imprint on the draft.
Yeah.
And that's been so fun as we've moved the draft from city to city.
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of time before Green Bay did the same. And the team's been amazing. And for fans out there who haven't had a chance to be in Green Bay at Lambeau Field, they're going to get a chance to see everything that's so special, unique about Green Bay, which is obviously synonymous with Packers.
I just remember very well when the decision came, and it's like, it's New York, New York, New York, and we're going to move it. And people were like, what? It's supposed to be New York. Could you have envisioned then when that happened how great this has been and how it's a huge part of it? And we've been to Philly and we've been to Nashville. It's been a massive success, and I love it.
The fans have been overwhelming.
Yes.
Who knew it was going to be this large? Like, shout out to the clubs who have put it on. Shout out to our team back in the office who have put the event together to make it so fan-friendly and give people access to something they hadn't seen before. I mean, last year in Detroit, hundreds of thousands of people showed up. Green Bay, from all over the Midwest, people are going to be there. And all of these fans who love the Packers or who've watched the Packers and have never been to Lambeau are going to get a bit of the Lambeau experience because it's all going to be built up. And they're going to get a feel for northern Wisconsin, which could not be more fun. Yeah.
So fun. Things they haven't experienced before, like cheese curds, spotted cow. We'll just keep running it down. I love Wisconsin. We talked in the air off the air.
What about Butterburgers? Like, you know, you and I are going to go over to Kroll's in a couple of days, right? I mean, people don't even know what that is. Like, what an experience.
No, but they're going to learn. You're going to learn about Cam Ward, Shedeur, and Butterburgers.
Indeed.
We always learn when you come in, Jeff, because if you don't know, Jeff is really on the front lines of player safety and protecting his players as much as we possibly can in this game. Your group recently had results from lab testing, which is a hard left turn from Butterburgers, Jeff.
Sure is.
Tell us about the lab testing, the different helmets, and for fans watching, what can they learn about this?
Thank you for asking, and nice job on the segue.
Thank you.
So talking about helmets, it was another great year in development of the engineering around helmets. Shout out to the engineers who work on this for both us and the Players Association. And what we saw last year was an influx of a bunch of brand new helmets. And what we saw on field represented what happened in the lab. So if you were wearing one of the best performing helmets, you were up to 27% less likely to get injured than somebody who was wearing an older helmet, which is a remarkable thing. And in the context of that, we saw last year in the league the fewest number of concussions we've ever seen. So the big goal this year is to take those helmets that were new last year, 7 new models this year, which also test very well, and move about 30% of the league into the best performing helmets to better protect them from injury, which is a huge lift, but that's the big goal for the season.
I always love this because if you're a fan, you watch and you'll tune in on a game and you're saying, oh, what is that helmet that George Kittle's watching? And I always think fans are obsessed with aesthetics and equipment, and this is what we're talking about here. And yet, I know there's still work to be done. You're talking about percentages. What are the goals? Where are we headed? How can we get more players in the safest helmets?
Yeah, we work really closely with the Players Association on the testing and on the education. And if we're up to us, we would mandate that some helmets not be worn at all. The Players Association wants a little bit more player choice, which is fine. But it's worked out. But we will work with the Players Association, the equipment managers, the trainers, and increasingly, this is a really interesting part to me, the coaches who want their players in the best performing helmets. And we've seen that coaches have gone to the club and say, hey, look, guys, here's the 5 best helmets. Choose one. Just choose one. The one you're wearing before isn't going to keep you as protected, and we need you on the field. Why take a greater risk of injury? And it is a very collaborative effort to move players into the best place. And these players, since your time, are more and more educated about the engineering. They ask smart questions. They get into it. They want to know what's newest from their manufacturer, what new device, what new shape, what new form is possible. And so they're involved in the process too. And credit to them. Changing your helmet's not an easy thing to do, and we ask a lot of them.
I remember talking to Kittle at the Pro Bowl, and I was like, hey, what's with the new helmets? I love it. I'll never wear anything else. absolutely way into it, the comfort and all the protection and everything, and I think the players are starting to embrace it more. It's compelling when the head coach says, here's the 5 helmets, pick one.
No question, not to mention the fact that more and more of these helmets are position-specific. So if you're an offensive lineman, that helmet is built to represent the impacts that you experience play-by-play, game-by-game. If you're a quarterback, similarly. So you know what those impacts are, the magnitude, the frequency of those impacts, and that piece of equipment is offering you more protection than your random helmet off the shelf. So why not use it? And more players are moving into those.
Can you envision a reality where a head coach, someone who's maybe doesn't give a damn about conventions like Jim Harbaugh, could mandate it?
Well, mandate that, now we're getting to legal territory.
Sure.
But
can heavily suggest
they certainly have a lot of influence, right? And we've seen that on team by team. Like there are certain teams that have more and more players in the best performing helmets and other teams that don't. And the difference to me is both the equipment manager, who's really good, as well as the head coach saying, guys, it's time to move into this thing.
Well, if we're going to talk safety, we're going to talk kickoffs and touchbacks. All right, bring us up to speed going into the 2025 season. People are confused, they're opinionated, they're passionate about kickoffs and touchbacks. Where are we and how do you feel?
Who knew that we would be debating the kickoff this much for this long?
It's big.
So here's the foundation part of it, Kyle. As you remember, the injury rate on the kickoff previous to last year was somewhere between 2 and 4 times a play from scrimmage. Okay, a lot. Concussions, double.
Okay.
So over the course of years, special teams coaches were working on different formations. Coaches were debating it. The league was debating it, talking to the players about it, on and on and on. We made the big move last year to the dynamic kickoff. The results, about 57% more kicks returned, and the injury rate actually decreased despite the fact there were more kicks returned, which is great. And the concussions were at their lowest level in years. So it performed exactly as we had modeled.
This is great news.
Great news. So yet, only about 1 in 3 kicks were returned. We want that number to be higher. So we're moving the touch back to the 35 from the 30. The idea there being that a lot more teams will now kick the ball in the landing zone.
Right.
Because there's a pretty good penalty if you don't. So more teams will bring it back. So you're going to see more kicks returned. Hopefully you'll see a few more interesting plays. And we saw last year, and hopefully we'll build on it, more touchdowns, more long returns, more exciting plays.
I love hearing that. It's all good news. I love the statistics. I was interested in you. You've done this for years. We've talked about it for years. Take a step back, Jeff, and look forward 5 years from now. What would you like to see? What is a goal?
Everything that we do is about reducing the number of injuries, the number of players lose games. We need to see more improvement in helmets. We want to see cleats and surfaces, which is a big focus of ours. Our friends at Nike are working with us on this now. The turf manufacturers are starting to get the same information from us that the helmet manufacturers got years ago. See better surfaces. Shoulder pads. Unfortunately, this year we saw an increase in shoulder injuries. I don't know if it's the pads. I don't know if it's the lack of pads. A lot of our players aren't wearing what they once did. Just look at NFL films from 20 years ago and you can see a difference. We need to look at all that. And I think we can save more injuries for the players. We can keep them on field longer. And I think that will always be a priority for the NFL.
Growing up in Wisconsin, your favorite Packers memory, what do you got?
Well, you have to go with Favre's Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
In 95, 96.
In New Orleans?
Oh, my gosh.
Reggie White?
Yeah, no, I flew with my brother to Houston and drove to New Orleans because the only way we could get there, and slept on a friend's floor in a hotel room so that we could see the Packers. But since then, just so you know, and for everybody watching the NFL, I root for all 32.
Of course,
equally.
absolutely.
Right? You lose your fandom when you come work at the league.
Yes.
But when I was just a kid, finding the Packers and rooting for the Packers in the Super Bowl was a highlight.
Road trip to New Orleans, sleeping on the floor. It wasn't always about safety with this guy. It's Jeff Miller. You get frustrated when players get injured. You don't want them off of your fantasy team. They're doing everything they possibly can to keep them healthy, and this guy is at the front of that. It's always great to see you, man.
Thanks, Kyle.
Let's enjoy the draft.
Mullet plays, Quinn Ewers. I think if you brought it back, everybody would be okay with it, but that's a decision that you get to make. Other football GMs are making decisions about Quinn Ewers this week. Cody Kessler, what do you think about the quarterback?
Yeah, I like Quinn Ewers. When he's playing in rhythm, when he's playing with confidence, he is as good of a passer in this draft as any other quarterback. I truly believe that. He's shown that over his career. He got his first offer when he was in 7th grade. Obviously, he's always had the talent. The problem is, a year ago, he lost some of that confidence. Now, I know he dealt with an injury. Then he dealt with a quarterback controversy when he came back, and there were times when he was struggling. And you hear that, right? You try to block it out. You don't look at Twitter. You don't look at social media. But when your fan base starts wanting another quarterback to play who showed some flashes, when you start struggling, it gets in your head, and that becomes a problem. If Quinn Ewers can get back to playing at a fast pace, throwing on the run right here like he did against Michigan, playing with confidence and poise, I think he can be a very good quarterback at the next level. Now, look, I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick, but I do believe he can have a lot of value in that 2nd round, maybe even 3rd or 4th round, to where he can be a solid backup and then develop into a starter potentially in the NFL. I don't think he did himself a ton of favors throughout this draft process at the Combine and at Pro Day, but I also don't think he hurt himself, right? I think he stayed right about in the same spot. A lot of people had a perception of him going into this pre-draft process. I think he proved that throughout this entire time. But overall, I'm a big fan of Quinn Ewers, and I think if he can continue to develop, he can be a big player in the NFL.
The concern with Quinn Ewers and talking to coaches and scouts is mainly he's not the biggest guy, doesn't have elite traits. He's been hurt and missed a little bit of time every year going back to high school. But there's one quarterback in this draft who went to consecutive college football playoffs, was 11-1 on the road as a starter, and joined Joe Burrow as the only quarterbacks to beat Nick Saban at Alabama in like the last 8 years. It wasn't Cam Moore, it wasn't Shedeur Sanders, it was Quinn Ewers. That's going to be a really interesting one to see exactly where he lands. Tell me about Jackson Dart, Cody, a guy who plays in a very quarterback-friendly offense there for Lane Kiffin and does have a chance to be a first-rounder.
Yeah, I really like Dart. I've been torn on who that second quarterback was throughout this entire process. Now, I believe that Cam Ward is one. Then there's a gap. I believe Shedeur Sanders is two. And then there's a smaller gap, and I have Jackson Dart just behind Shedeur Sanders. I really like his game. Solid arm. I played for Lane Kiffin, so I know the type of coaching that he is receiving. It's going to translate well to the NFL. Very good at pushing the football down the field. He led college football last year, 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns when throwing the ball 20-plus yards down the field. He, opposite of Quinn Ewers, in my opinion, really had a great pre-draft process, kind of like Bo Nix did a year ago. We saw him ascend to where Bo Nix was in that top 50 range, right? Top 45 range. There was concern about his age and being in college for a long time, but then he went out and crushed the combine. He did a great job at his pro day, really took advantage of those individual workouts, those private workouts. We heard Sean Payton talk about that's where they were sold on Bo Nix. I wish we could learn more about those private workouts with Jackson Dart and the teams that he's worked with. But again, Dart, for me, is a guy that I think could sneak into the first round. I've seen him going as high as the top 5. I've seen him going in the middle of the second round. You can convince me with either of those, right? I really like his play style. I think he's going to transition well to the NFL. I know all the talk has been Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, but you can't forget about Jackson Dart.
Let's talk Jalen Milroe, then. Alabama, we know a lot of him. He's an incredible athlete. We had him on the show, and he was so compelling, so smart, so sharp, so fun, incredible personality. We all really, really liked him. Also, he raised some eyebrows when the news came out that he'd be attending the draft, which he talked about. He's going to be there in Green Bay, sitting there in the green room, and no one knows if he's going to get picked. And we always hate to see those guys just sit there and then leave without being picked. Maybe he's getting some questionable advice, or maybe he knows something that we don't know. But the word is he's going to be there. What do you think, Cody?
Yeah, I don't know how to read into that, Kyle. When I heard that news, I was a little surprised because I didn't have Jalen Milroe with the first-round grade. But again, read into it however you like. The fact that he got invited there, it tells you something. That has to mean something. It does carry weight. Now, is he going to be a first-round pick? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But when I look at Jalen Milroe, he is the most intriguing player to me in this draft at the quarterback position. He is very dangerous on the ground. We just heard Omar talk about being faster than Lamar Jackson. Don't know about that, but the way that he runs the football, I think he's a little more physical as a runner, and he can create on the ground. He has a NFL-level arm talent. He really does, and he throws a pretty football. The problem is it's just not consistent enough. You'll watch his tape, and if you go back and check out the film, he'll have 2 to 3 throws to where you say, okay, this is a Sunday type of throw. This is a NFL-level throw, and then he'll have 2 to 3 throws to where he misses a guy wide open because his footwork gets off. He loses his accuracy. He's got to become more consistent as a pocket passer if he wants to be a true starter in the NFL, but all the intangibles are there. Now, with Milroe, something that showed me a lot of promise was that we got to the combine, and one of the things that was an issue with him, like I mentioned, was accuracy. He missed majority of his throws high. What that tells me is that he was not getting comfortable at the top of his drop. His footwork was off. He was leaving his left shoulder high. He wasn't finishing his throw right. When you're a quarterback and you're missing high, I need you to pull down and extend, right? If you're leaving it up here, you're going to miss a lot of throws high. Go watch the tape from the combine. That's exactly what he did. Then you go to the pro day. He fixed that. Those are small mechanical issues that if you don't fix, they'll continue to linger. But if you address them, that tells me as a coach that you can improve and you can take coaching. He fixed that. His pro day was phenomenal. He looked very comfortable in his drop back, especially under center. Had some play action, was very accurate, didn't miss a lot of throws high. He is a very intriguing prospect. Like I said, Kyle, the draft invite, I don't know how to look into that. I don't know what that means. It does carry some weight. But overall, I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Milroe hops into that first round, but I see him as potentially a day 2 pick.
Well, let me admit something. So it'll be my first NFL draft to attend. I'll be in Green Bay, and I will be on the stage with the first-round draft picks. Anyone that is left over, Tom Pelissero, from the first round who might be a second-round guy, I stay in Green Bay and interview that person, that athlete. Like, they get their moment on the stage. So if Jalen Milroe is the 1 or 2 players left over, he's getting his interview up there. So the conversation is happening regardless. Jalen Milroe, fascinating, intriguing, Tom, whatever adjective you want to use. the future is someone's going to pick him. And what are you hearing in terms of what team might take him and where he might go? And why is he going to Green Bay?
The eye-opening thing that several, not one, several coaches and scouts told me as I was making calls about all these quarterbacks is Jalen Milroe is the greatest runner of the football they've ever evaluated at the quarterback position. Not Lamar Jackson. Jalen Milroe is the best runner that they've ever seen. Cody said it. He's got a big arm, and he actually has some accuracy down the field, but it's the consistency of that accuracy that's going to lead to some concerns. We just watched Jalen Hurts win a Super Bowl. He was a late second-round pick. If you redrafted the 2020 draft, you'd probably make a case maybe Jalen Hurts should have come off the board at the bottom of round one. But you got to have a really clear vision for what you're going to do with Jalen Hurts. He may need to be on the field in different capacities like Lamar Jackson was his first year until Joe Flacco got hurt and Lamar took over. This is going to be one of the unique stories in this draft. Certainly, there is a possibility, Jamie, that somebody falls in love with the player and the person believes they can harness it. But this is a long-term type of a project that you're going to have with Jalen Milroe. Everyone's going to have to decide what the value is of that when it comes to draft night.
Tom, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a little triggering when you say best runner of the football at the quarterback position. Kyle, is that not insane for you to hear?
It's incredible. I mean, listen, Lamar is the name that jumps out. But remember, Lamar's draft process was very unconventional. Didn't run a 40. There was a lot of mystery around him. Jalen Milroe's right there. He's doing every show. He blazed his 40. He's got all the tape. And it's like, I think of somebody like Anthony Richardson, who he had that label, project, very inexperienced, didn't start a lot of games. But, oh, my God, you see him do that backflip? He goes 4th overall. I mean, 4th overall. So I just come back to, and I have to be candid about this, I hated hearing that Jalen Milroe was attending the draft. I get nervous. I don't like seeing those kids sit there and then go home and not get drafted. I think it's humiliating. And I think that we see it for years, and we saw it with, you name it, Will Levis, Geno Smith, on and on and on, and they leave with their family. I guess I don't have a team. I don't like it. It makes me nervous, like as a parent almost. So I hope that there is some insight, and what Tom is saying is very interesting, that someone may try to hit a home run with this, and that we're going to look at his ability. And that headline that Tom just said, and it is a headline, the best runner of the football as a quarterback that these people have ever evaluated. Not one, several. That, to me, says, like, I'm going to take a shot on this guy in the first round, even if I have to trade in to do it.
Two things real quick. Tom P., I agree, and I think that's the most important thing, is that it only takes one team to fall in love with a guy to go take him in the first round and make them their pick. The second thing, Kyle, you gave me flashbacks. I was nervous because ESPN reached out to me, and they wanted to attend my house with a camera to film me because I was somewhere in the second to fourth round.
Yeah.
I said, no way. If I don't go in the second round or if I don't go in the third round, if I don't go day two, I don't want to be one of those guys where the camera's on me and everyone's sitting there and looking like a sob story and we're sad. I couldn't imagine going in person and that not happening. I know it's happened before, but you gave me some flashbacks right there, Kyle, because they said, we want to come set up production in your house so when you get drafted, the camera crew will be there. So what if I don't get drafted? The camera crew's going to be sitting there anyways, and now everyone's going to look sad. So that was a little flashback there.
On one side, we have Seth freaking Rollins, and on the other side, we have KB Pump.
Yeah!
Of course, the Green Bay Packers are trying to eliminate the tush push. Of all the teams in the league with absolutely no cojones, it's the Green Bay Packers. Just like my man Kyle Brandt. Look at him, the Princeton pretty boy. Look like you've been spending absolutely zero time in the gym. You know why you want the tush push ban? Because you wouldn't last a second in that scrum.
The tush push is not real. No one respects it. Kind of like cashing in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. It's a genuine article, and everybody knows it. No fans actually like the tush push. They like to argue about it. It's like a certain wrestler. How long is this? It's just incredible. I have so much fun at work. That's Seth Rollins, most importantly. And if you've been paying attention over the weekend, it was WrestleMania weekend. It was massive. It was in Las Vegas. He had a crazy, crazy turn of events in the ring involving another friend of the show, Paul Heyman. And the only equivalent I can give to what happened is, imagine if, like, Andy Reid decided to betray Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs trade up and take a quarterback early in the first round of the draft. Like, it was that crazy. And more importantly, guys, Seth's going to be in Green Bay. Seth's going to be announcing a draft pick for the Bears on night 2, which is Friday night. And more importantly, never mind what happens at night. Seth's going to be on with us Friday morning, Good Morning Football in Green Bay, shot out of a cannon. Who the hell knows what he's going to be talking about or how he's going to be dressed? But he's become one of our close friends, and he and I might have to debate again. And, Jamie, you might have to be the one with the steel chair this time, so let's go.
Oh, man. No, I was going to say, are you going to bait him with good advice on how to make a draft pick, Kyle, or are you going to try to actually support him like a real friend?
Question.
I get very confused with how this friendship or relationship goes.
It depends on if we're practicing kayfabe. That's the phrase that they use. If I'm in character, then I'll tell him to just slaughter it. Don't worry about the pronunciation, Seth. It'll be really easy. I'm sure you won't mess it up, because that always is what it comes down to with those draft picks. You have to get the pronunciation right. What do you think, Kessler?
I'll say this, going back to the intro clip, I think the coolest thing I've ever seen on television, or top 5 things I've ever seen on football television, was when Kyle and Seth went back and forth. And also the intro that I saw from Seth Rollins when he first came on the show. That was some great television. Back to the pronunciation thing. Hey, you hear your name called, whether it's right or wrong, it's a dream come true, so you got to enjoy the moment regardless.
No doubt.
So what can we look forward to, Kyle? Are we going to have part 2 of that? Will you have sleeves? It's not really warm
Great
here.
question.
I just want to let you know that. Will you be sleeveless in this booth on Friday?
I'd love to have part 2, Tom. I've extended the invitation, and Seth has not responded. When you can take from that what you will. I think maybe he got enough of a whooping up in this house, and he's going to go on to do his other thing. And he doesn't want to come in here again. Green Bay, otherwise. It's not exactly a great history for people who are into the Chicago Bears going to Green Bay. So we may have to be fighting uphill the whole time. Seth, we can't wait. The gauntlet's been thrown down. Come on Friday, we'll be there. Right, Jamie?
Seth freaking Rollins on GMFB on Friday, live from Green Bay.